Make sure that we're actually live on Facebook here. Let me just make sure. I'm having a hard time getting this transmission live. I think it's working now. Okay, anyways, um, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk a little bit about this issue of ransomware. Some of you may be familiar, I'm sure, that there's a big company called Colonial Pipeline that provides almost half of the fuel through the distribution channels that extend from Houston, Texas, all the way to New Jersey, which is about 5,500 miles, or over 100 million gallons a day. And so I'm sure that you've seen in some places, the large lines as people have been trying to get through gas stations to buy gas in fear that something can happen to the distribution channels and that it would become chaotic, kind of like what happened at the beginning of the pandemic with the toilet papers and some other things that happened. But anyways, what I wanted to talk about today was just to give you some hints or some advice should this happen to you. Now, ransomware is a little different than hacking. You've known that many times the computer systems get hacked. And in that case, many times what happens is the data gets stolen, and for the purpose of maybe using it to create other theft, right? Like identity theft, right? They take your credit card information, your birthday, and that sort of thing, and then they use that information to commit crimes, right? Well, ransomware is a little different. It still involves cyber criminals, and what they do is they take over your computer and they encrypt your data. And for you to be able to gain access to your data, you have to pay them money, and usually in the form of cryptocurrency. And so it's just you don't even know who the players are. They simply somehow they gain access to your computer, and they encrypt your data with very complex algorithm that only they have a key to decrypt that data. And in some cases, if you are somebody that has mission critical information on your computer, and now you've got this situation where these people have this encrypted data that you can access, sometimes you have no choice, right, but to abide by what they say and pay. And it's happened. I've been dealing with IT for many, many years, and I've seen all kinds of issues and all kinds of situations. And this one about ransomware, it's becoming more and more popular. And it doesn't only happen to large corporations, large companies. We heard today that Colonial Pipeline paid somewhere around $5 million, which it surprised a lot of people because given the magnitude and the impact that this company has, like I mentioned earlier, nearly half of the fuel distribution in the United States goes through this company. You would think that the ransomware ask would have been a lot larger. Well, thank God it wasn't. And nevertheless, the company did pay. Now, it is usually recommended that you don't pay this ransomware, this monies that they, the extortion that these people want from you. And the reason why it is recommended that you not do that, it's because in some ways you're incentivizing other bad players to come in and engage in this behavior, right? But what you find is that many companies or many individuals, for that matter, really have no choice, because when you have your systems being at a point where you can't access them and they impact your day-to-day work, then you have no choice. And like I said, those algorithms are so complex that finding a key, there are places that you can go online and they make claims that they can help you. And so what you do if you engage those other players is you ruin the risk of ruining the data that you have. So if you engage a third party other than the people, people other than these bot players that have taken over your computer, and you inject another algorithm to decrypt this data, what can happen is usually that you're not going to succeed at decrypting the data with this third player or this third party. And then you can't go back to the original cyber criminals, because the key that they are going to provide you at this point is not going to be of any use to you. So just it's very challenging to wait the options that you have, and most people, or many people, find themselves having to pay, provided that it's not an outrageous amount of money. And so that's why this company, Colonial Pipeline, probably decided to comply and pay the money that was asked. Now, it's important that you realize that even if you pay the money to this company, to this cyber criminal, it is not an easy process, because the process of decrypting this data, this hardware, this hard disk drives and what have you, it could go wrong. Once you encrypt a drive or data and it goes through the process, you then have to go through a lengthy process to decrypt that data, and that could take a long time. In addition, it is subject to all kinds of challenges that can happen during the process. So just because you pay the money and get the decrypting key, it doesn't mean that your data is going to be available to you. In fact, in many cases, you have to rebuild systems, because what happens is when these criminals, or the cyber criminals, when they encrypt your data, they end up also encrypting part of the operating system. And so that requires that you also kind of like restore the operating system before you can go ahead and put in new information, or restore your information to it. But just my recommendation to you is that know that this can happen to anyone. And so limit your exposure on the web whenever possible. Obviously, we all have to use the internet and all kinds of services on the web, but just be aware that you have to, every time you go to the web, you are subject to these cyber criminals taking over your system. So whenever you can, use things like obviously a virus protection program, use a firewall if you can. Many times, your ISP provider gives you that without you knowing. But if you can implement one in your own infrastructure, that would be even better. But most important is to back up your data. That's really key. Put your data in multiple secure locations. So, for example, if you have a home computer and you're afraid that somebody can get to it, what you should do is, and it may be a little bit of, for you, it may raise a flag whenever you use the cloud, but that is an option to you. If you have critical data that you have on your local hard drive, on your local computer, you may want to consider buying space on Google Drive or OneDrive with Microsoft and some of these other vendors that you have out there, and dump a copy of your critical data into the cloud. And I know that people are afraid to use, cloud services or storage services external to their systems, but I think that the benefit in this case outweighs all the risk that you could potentially have, because if you are your computer is taken over and you're not able to pay the price that these people are asking you to pay, then you can end up having no data at all. And this has happened to a number of people that I have had to help restore data. And it's just in some cases where the data is critical, the money has had they had to pay the money that was asked. And so I encourage you to, one way that will ensure that you don't have to pay the money is if you have copies of your data someplace else, because you can, in that case, if the cyber criminals take over your computer and they encrypt your computer, then you can start fresh. You can wipe it clean and just start brand new. I know it'll be painful, but it'll be painful either way, even if you get the encryption key. It's not, again, it's not as simple as placing an encryption key and letting things go through. It's not that simple, even if you pay the money. So the best option for you is to ensure that you have backups, that you keep copies of your critical data someplace else. Now, it doesn't have to be only in a cloud service. You could purchase an external hard drive and make it a routine to back up your data maybe once a month. Now, there are all kinds of services out there, programs that allow you to make a backup of your data. And then what they allow you to do is they allow you to do supplemental backups of an initial backup, meaning that you don't have to back up your entire data on that hard drive every time. You can simply make a one-time backup and then add additional new content to that backup that you already have to make the process easier. One thing you want to ensure is that you keep that hard drive. If you choose to go that route, make sure that you keep your hard drive away from your computer. If you leave your hard drive connected to your computer, and these cyber criminals take over your computer and they introduce ransomware, it will not only affect your computer, it will also affect any devices that are attached to it, including hard drives. So once you make a copy of your data onto a hard drive, you want to take that hard drive and put it away. Maybe buy yourself some safe box or something on that line where you're just keeping your hard drive away. And if you've chosen not to do the cloud, but you want to keep them separate. You don't want to keep your hard drive attached, your external hard drive attached to your computer after you do a backup, because if the ransomware is injected or introduced into your computer, it will affect the devices attached to it. So be careful with that. But I just wanted to comment on that, because that is bound to become a bigger and bigger issue in the days to come. Like anything else, at the beginning of technology, when we started having the personal computers and people, began using them, we were introduced to this virus, right? And then people created, and companies and platforms were created to combat these viruses that were being created. And so it's the same thing here. I don't think it would be that much different. Already you're having some companies claiming that they can counter these cyber criminals by creating other algorithms that supposedly would decrypt the data that these cyber criminals encrypt with their private keys. Now, I have not had much success with third-party companies once these computers are infected with the ransomware from the cyber criminal. So I don't recommend that unless you know of a particular company that has successfully done this. I would not, if it's critical data that you need, I would not introduce third parties into that equation, because again, what will happen is that you'll not be able to get your data from this third party, and then when you want to get your data from the cyber criminal, it would not work anymore because you've introduced a third agent into the equation. So just be careful, and it all depends how critical your data is. In many cases, it could be that you don't care that they took over, and you are not willing to pay the kinds of money that these people are asking for. And it varies, for the regular consumer personal computers or laptops. I've seen ransomware requests or demand for money from anywhere from $1,500 to $7,000 in that range. Obviously, for big company or even small businesses, there's a distinction, and they make a distinction between those. So the monies are different. We saw again with this gigantic company, Colonial Pipeline, where they asked somewhere around $5 million, right? And so smaller companies could be hit with a smaller amount of money. The idea is to try to not pay the money and discourage this bad players from coming in and growing the market, right? And you do that again by being proactive and ensuring that you have your data secure. And that means that you use another source to store your data. In other words, you make a copy, a backup. And again, that could be either in the cloud, or you could do it through an external hard drive. But that's the key. That's the key to ensuring that you don't have to pay these criminals, and that we put them out of business. Otherwise, it would be a little bit of time before that happens, because right now those complex algorithms are just too complicated to decipher. And so if your data is critical in case of some businesses, online, sad to say it, but they just have no choice right now. And so that's what this company was faced with, this dilemma that you could continue and not comply, and then try to see how your IT department moves along with restoring data and that type of thing. But that's just it's just a very difficult call. And sometimes again, even with the paying the fees that this cyber criminals ask you, even then it's still difficult to restore data or restore systems to the way they were. That's why you still have, even though this company claim is that they paid, I think almost a week ago, last Friday, they actually paid this $5 million. Today, they're still lingering and not having their systems in place. So that's what happens. And so just the best way is just ensure that you limit your exposure by having all the systems security that you can have. And I mentioned, obviously, the virus protection programs, the firewall are things that you can use. But then also remember to engage in backups to the cloud or to external sources. I just wanted to share that information with you. And I hope you have a great day. Okay, bye-bye.